The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus Radio, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices, emanating live from the DMV. Local, national, and international listeners, get ready. Black Focus Radio is on the air. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite social media app. Now, here's your host, David W. Coleman. Habari Gani, and that means it's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the only show that unabashedly addresses Black issues, creating Black solutions, and amplifying Black voices. Be sure to support our sponsors, uneducated.com, where we keep you informed and inspired, broadcasting Black Focus Radio daily, 12 to 2 p.m. Central Time. Don't forget to support our sponsors, Reprogram.com, ChanBearMediaConsultants.com, and oh yeah, the new book is out from Dante Sinkay. It's called Blue Chip Down. It's on Amazon, but order direct from the author and get an autographed copy. Don't forget to catch Black Focus Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And while there, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, because we're trying to get those numbers up. In other words, tell a friend to tell a friend. One other thing, don't forget to join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. It is the most despicable word ever created. Our rise begins with how we address ourselves. And using a derogatory slur against our own people is a negative, self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what I like to say? Just don't say it. Okay? Say it with me now. Just don't say it. All right. Got a great show for you today. Man, I'm going to tell you, we're going to talk a little bit about education. We're going to certainly address Darius Cooks. By now, you all have seen the video. He's went viral. It's been all over the news. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some of you all's response to Darius Cooks. And maybe that's why our children are in the situation that we are in today. Also, we want to make sure we want to talk about gangsters, gays, studs, and thoughts. Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. This show is going to make a lot of y'all mad at me. If you've listened to the show before, I don't really care that you get mad at me, okay? What I care about is dropping knowledge, and I'm hoping that some of you all will pick it up, all right? Also, let's see. If we get an opportunity, we'll talk about the Memphis clubbers who got locked in. Man, if you all don't understand what's going on right now, you're not paying attention. Did you hear about they are breeding young white supremacists who were about to commit mass murder? We'll get into that conversation as well. Let's see what else by the way, never talk to the police. Never. You get pulled over, give them your driver's license, your registration, and your insurance. I'm going to tell you a story that I found out, and wow, how crazy can you be? And black women raising black boys and blaming black men. We're going to talk about all of that today. I'm just saying. Y'all mad? Not yet, but you will be. We got to start talking. We've got to start having serious conversations. Speaking of which, let's have a serious conversation about black facts.
Dynamic black facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
I was thinking about this when I decided to do the show today, this particular black fact. And as I've told you all over and over again, there is no way that you can really become aware of what white supremacy has done to you if you don't educate yourselves, okay? And educating yourselves is not going to public schools. Educating yourself is not following the history that was taught to you while you were in school, whether it's a public or private school. Education is an ongoing process, and you need to research So as you all know, I have this extensive book list, and I was thinking about some of the things, and I was hearing some of the stupidity that was being said by black people about other black people. And if you listened to the show last week, you know I came down hard on Coon Tatum and Chef Coon Creole. And I thought after the show, I said, man, I should have brought this up. And this continues to happen. So many of y'all may not know what meritorious manumission is. Okay? You all may not know what that is. So I thought I'd bring this up. And by the way, this is a Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask by the great Dr. Claude Anderson. And he puts a section in there in this book called, it's question number 12. Remember, it's 101 questions. It's question number 12. What was meritorious manumission, and does it still apply to blacks? Okay, if y'all want to, here's the cover right here. Can y'all see that? Okay. Does it still apply to blacks? All right, so meritorious manumission was a legal act of freeing a slave for good deeds as defined by the national public policy. The term meritorious means something earned. Manumission means becoming free or freedom. During slavery, a slaveholder could grant freedom to a slave who distinguished himself by saving the life of a white person. I'm sorry, I'll be the laugh. I'm sorry. Okay. Inventing or designing something that enriched a white person or snitched on other members of his race, especially those blacks who were resisting and contemplating revolt. Coon Tatum. Meritorious manumission policies were not intended to unify slaves or make them more self-supportive humans. Instead, the policies were designed to keep blacks non-threatening and under control. Meritorious manumission became a public policy in the early 1700s and was introduced into the Virginia legislature as a law. Virginia's right down the street from where I am right now, okay? As a law in 1710. Incorporated into every aspect of the slavery system, it remained active. It remained, an active carrot and incentive through the social integration process, and it is still an operating principle at this present time. When you say so, Coon Tatum. What about Candace? Y'all remember Candace Owens? Yeah, okay. Meritorious manumission recognized and rewarded blacks who accepted their assigned position, but for personal gain would thwart openly and nefariously the efforts by other blacks to alter the racial status quo. The first person known to have received meritorious manumission set the baseline for the benefits. Peter M. Bergman, in his book, The Chronological History of the Negro, said the first person to receive meritorious manumission was a Negro named Will, who was recognized for having impeded a slave revolt in a South Carolina colony. He was awarded his freedom for performing a public service. Will's freedom papers provided that he enjoy and have all the liberties, privileges, and immunities of or to be a free Negro. Once the public policy was in place, an endless number of slaves became sensitive to freedom opportunities that they could earn. In the 150 years between 1710 and 1860, black slaves reportedly revealed the plans of over 300 possible slave revolts and insurrections. Did you hear that? Over 300. But they said black people were comfortable being slaves, so they didn't want to revolt. Yeah, okay. I got you. All right. Slaves warned slave owners or the general public of impending revolts in hopes of receiving meritorious manumissions in the forms of personal recognition, or material benefits. Another notable example of a black person seeking meritorious manumission occurred on the eve of the Civil War. In 1859, abolitionist Jim Brown and his raiding party traveled to Harper's Ferry, traveled to Harper's Ferry, Virginia, to capture weapons from the U.S. Marine Corps armory to use to free black slaves. When John Brown and his party entered the town, a black man who had already won meritorious manumission was sitting on the porch of a railroad station and recognized Brown and his party. The black man, Haywood Shepherd, ran to alert the town that Brown was in town to free slaves. Brown's raiders shot Shepherd down in the street. He was free to sit on the porch that evening. He was free to sit on the porch that evening because he was no longer a slave. In gratitude for Haywood Shepherd's outstanding behavior of placing white society's political economic interests above the freedom of and the needs of members of his own race, the town enacted a monument honoring him. The Haywood Shepherd statue that was stored beside the city's major museum and covered with a wooden box in the 1860s. The inscription on the statue that the town of Harper's Ferry enacted to honor Haywood Shepherd read, Haywood Shepherd, statue in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. There you go. On the night of October 16th, Haywood Shepherd, an industrious, respected colored free man, was mortally wounded by John Brown's raiders in pursuance of his duty as an employee of Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Company. He became the first victim of this attempted insurrection. This boulder was erected by the United Daughters of the Confederacy and the Sons of Confederate Veterans as a memorial to Haywood Shepherd, exemplifying the character and faithfulness of thousands of Negroes who, under many temptations throughout subsequent years of war, so conducted themselves that no stain was left upon a record which is the peculiar heritage of the American people, and an everlasting tribute to the best in both races. Wow. Thanks, Haywood Shepherd. Thank you a lot. Meritorious manumission behavior is often observed, especially in ranks of black elected officials, ministers, civil rights leaders, athletes, and entertainment personalities. Woo! Told you I had to read this today. The visible people anointed by others as leaders, as leading blacks, are sometimes aloof and disconnected from their own race. They are often required to disavow and abandon their own people in exchange for public attention, financial resources, and powerful comfort. Once co-opted by the power structure, they are effective tools to be used against or to control the black masses. Divide and conquer scheme makes the black minority even weaker and more exploitable. Besides, blacks seeking meritorious manumission, for instance, will endorse political candidates knowing they will deliver nothing to black people. They will support integration with any group before seeking and strengthening their own people. Worst of all, those seeking modern-day meritorious manumission delivers what the advancement of their own race is wholly dependent on the advancement of the white race and all other peoples of the world. Meritorious manumission opportunities today are typically presented as symbols and incentives for satisfying race relations. such as being asked to support public policies that substitute the intent of Native Black Americans to the interest of women, LGBT, immigrants, and other fabricated minorities. Most Black civil rights leaders and elected officials that allow these groups to be equated to and ranked over Blacks are seeking their meritorious manumission. So keep your eyes on Fox, CNN, ABC, or NBC television crew news channels and see if you can identify Blacks seeking and getting meritorious manumission rewards and recognition. Wow. What do y'all think about that? And that's important for this show today. And by the way, that comes from, and you can look up what meritorious manumission is, that comes from Dr. Claude Anderson, A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. I'm going to tell you folks, this is a fantastic book. And Dr. Claude Anderson, he doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't. I got to meet Dr. Claude Anderson and become friends of his at Black Writers on Tour in Los Angeles under the auspices of Dr. Rosie Milligan. So I want to thank Dr. Rosie Milligan. So I hope you enjoyed that Black fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
Meritorious manumission. That is profound. And as we go through the show today, you'll understand why I decided to address that issue. We're going to talk about that because if we are going to be successful as a race of people, then we have to point out those people who are selling us down the river. Okay? And there are a lot of Black people who are doing that just for the case of money. All right? And they don't care. This is part of the reason that I've been tough on rappers. I've been tough on these people who are making these movies that only support or show Black people as drug dealers and gangbangers and all of that stuff. As a matter of fact, there's something coming out in Little Rock called Southwest that's glorifying the gang culture in Southwest Little Rock. So we'll talk about a lot of that and more as the shows go on. We got to take our first break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with Black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world. Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics, and who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting Black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting Black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to Black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay, today. Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. By the way, did you hear the new music for the open and close? I hope you did. We're going to be incorporating some new stuff here coming up here real soon. So just stay tuned for that. I basically do my own loops and so on and so forth. So I'm excited. I like it. It's pretty fire, if I may say so myself. And I did say fire. Okay, so this segment I want to talk a little bit about our people. In fact, you said, well, you do that every segment. You're exactly right. And that will be no different in this segment. This segment is going to deal with something that occurred last week. And I watched how this gentleman was attacked. Okay? I'm referring to a guy by the name of Darius Cooks. I don't know Darius Cooks personally. I do know that at one point he cooks. He has some great videos about cooking. He's very articulate. I like his explanations, although I don't really, I don't want to say condescending, but they just don't serve my interest. But his information that he gives is pretty good when he shows people how to cook. From what I understand, he went through some issues and so on and so forth. I don't know all of that. But apparently what I did know is that he's a teacher. And he is currently teaching 12th graders. And he posted a video last week and he was crying. And he was crying because he had given some 12th graders, seniors, this was a senior class, a sentence, and they could not read 2 paragraphs and write a sentence. These were seniors in high school, okay? In a few months, you're going to be out on your own. And he was crying and he was frustrated because these kids could not read. So subsequently, there were posts under his post. And these black parents and some black educators were attacking Darius Cooks. Now look, I'm not here to try to defend what Darius does in his personal life. I don't really care about that. But what I'm concerned about is that here is a man who is making a point about the miseducation of our children, and you all attack him. So let me give you a story, because a lot of those people that were on responding to his post, some of those people were educators, okay? And they were bragging about how long they had been educators, and here's what they do to help their those children, and yada, yada, yada. And that's great. I'm glad you go beyond the call of duty to do what you need to try to help these young people, all right? I'm pretty sure that Darius Cooks does the same thing, and therein lied his frustration. But let me just tell you my experience in the educational field. Now, I'm not a teacher. I'm not an educator. My background is radio and computers. For 2.5 years, I was the acting IT director at a local, and I won't say local, in a city that had an HBCU. And one of the things that I quickly discovered that many of those college students could not read. Let me tell you how I discovered that. One of my jobs was to get college students in set up with their admissions. And how I did that was, number one, you had to get logged into your system, get your email, and so on and so forth. So the first year that I did this, I simply wrote out a very self-explanatory piece of paper that I gave to every student who came in to register and set up their accounts. Okay? It was on a piece of paper. And I caught holy hell. Now let me tell you how. Because I realized that most of those students could not read that simplified paper and follow directions. Okay? The whole point in giving them this paper was to move the process along so it could move faster. So you didn't need me to tell you everything that you needed to do. All you had to do was follow these, if I remember correctly, there were 10 steps. Many of those students couldn't follow the first step. And that's simply logging on to the computer and setting up their accounts. Many of them could not do that, let alone go through and pull all of their information. So I found myself having to walk them through, many of them. I even had a mother who was mad at me because she sat there, because what I did was I made the parents, because quite often the parents would come and sit with the child and walk them through it. Many of the parents couldn't read either, by the way, I would say that. But my whole point is that these young people needed to know how to log into their system so that they could get their grades, so they could get their books, so they can get their assignments, all of this stuff. I had a mother who got mad at me because I made the parents sit at the front of the library because it was the job of those students to do this. And I would tell the parents, don't get offended, but you're not going to be here during the semester. These kids need to know how to do it on their own. And if you are sitting there walking them through it, then they're not going to do it. This woman, black woman, remember this was an HBCU. She got all upset with me. She went and reported me to the dean and yada, yada, yada. Unfortunately, the dean said, hey, look, he's doing what he's supposed to do. And he's right. Okay? So the next semester rolled around. I decided that, okay, since they can't read, and by the way, some of the same kids that were in that first session that I did were back the next session. And you would have thought that, hey, well, I got this now, Mr. David, as they called me. You would have thought they got it down. They didn't. So this next session, I decided I would stand up before the entire group, and when groups came in waves, there were 5 to 10 of them, and I would simply go through each step. I still gave them the paper, okay? But I would still stand up and go through step by step. Now, I'm sorry, I'm fairly educated. I know computers, and you really don't even know you don't really need to know how to do computers. You just need to follow the directions that are on the screen. And I'm sitting there with a paper with the screen that I had printed out. And you have that paper, young student, and you still couldn't do it. You still couldn't do it. And I found myself having to go to person to person to person to help them get enrolled in college classes. These were freshmen in college. Some of them were sophomores in college. I'm sitting there saying to myself, and quite often at the end of registration each day, although I didn't cry, I was totally exasperated and frustrated Because see, these were our black students. These are the future students. The future, I'm not going to even say the future doctors and lawyers. Because some of those students that I dealt with didn't belong in college. I'm just being real with you. And I hate to say it, many of them were athletes. They were simply on that campus to play sports. So the next semester comes around. So this time I have my assistant. He walked around checking to make sure all the accounts were set up as I stood in front of the class dictating what needs to be done. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I did chastise quite a few of them. I let them know every chance I got that you should be able to read. You should be able to follow these simple instructions. How are you going to survive in life if you cannot follow basic instructions and you cannot read? Hello? Now, what I found is a lot of those instructors on that particular campus babied those kids. They felt sorry for those kids. And so did I, to some extent. But here's what I wanted them to understand, is that this world is not going to feel sorry for your asses. This world is going to roll over you and then reverse and roll over you again if you don't get your stuff together. And while you're walking around with bonnets on your head and do-rags and smoking dope, with your butt all out, your breast all out, trying to attract attention, this world is going to roll right over you. And these are things I said directly to them. And I told them, I'm not trying to be mean, but I grew up in that particular neighborhood. I grew up a block from where that college was. And I wanted to make sure that I gave them as much knowledge as I had in my head to help them be empowered to go out into this world and be successful individuals. So I tell you that story because I know some of you all are going to jump on my post and try to chastise me about what I'm saying here. Darius Cooks was exactly right. And for any of you all to jump on his post and criticize this man because he was concerned about black children being educated was an abomination. Now, our school system is an abomination because these kids, I remember that there were kids who were not up to snuff when I was in high school and junior high, even all the way back to elementary school. They didn't pass. Y'all don't know what passing means, do you? Well, if you didn't meet the standards of being a first grader, second grader, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you didn't pass. And if you didn't make it as a 12th grader, you didn't get a diploma. Okay? You got a certificate that you just attended school. And many times they would put you back. I know parents who would hold their children back a year because their children weren't ready to go to school because of their development, which is not a bad idea. But the bottom line is this: our school system is failing. And I laughed when the lady posted that she taught her kids, she made her kids, and I talked about this last week on the show, she made her kids study 2 hours a day throughout the summer. And I told you what I did to my kids. I basically did the same thing. You had to read. What you ought to understand is white people study 24/7. Now, I'm exaggerating, but when school is out, they're studying. Spring break, they're studying. Christmas break, they're studying. Thanksgiving break, they're studying. I did my kids the same way. And I look at them today and it has paid off. Our children don't have time to play. And number one, playing should not be their main source of education. There's a reason why the recess is only 15 minutes. In fact, and lunch is 30 minutes. I remember when I was in school, when we had lunch, And fortunately for me, I carried my lunch quite often, but people would rush to eat their lunch so that they could get outside and spend 15, 20 minutes playing. There's a reason why you only get that 45 minutes of break during the day. Because education is key. When you are a young person, when you are a child growing up, your only responsibility is to get grades, good grades. That's what I told my kids. And I would tell them, I said, look, you have two jobs. I have to go to work every day so that I can put food on the table, put a roof over your head, put clothes on your back. Your job is to go to school and get good grades and do your chores. Your primary job is to go to school and get good grades. Notice I didn't say go to school. I said go to school and get good grades. And I told them, I said, look, if your chores are too much, that it is running into you not being able to get your good grades, then I will pull back on some of your chores. You're always going to have chores, but your primary function in this house is to go to school and get good grades. Apparently, and by the way, I work too, so don't tell me I was a working parent. I'm a working parent and I don't have time. Yeah, I know, I did too. You're not the first one in the water on this situation. This is where you have to have the village. But y'all don't want the village anymore. Y'all don't want people talking to y'all children. Y'all don't want people chastising your children. Y'all don't want people telling your children what is right and wrong. You're not raising them, but you don't want anyone else to raise them. And that's why we have all of these thugs, these gangbangers, these gays, these thoughts. That's right. You can get mad all you want. You can get mad all you want. And I will say beyond a shadow of a doubt that there were young people who were gay growing up. And we're going to talk about this the next hour because I'm going to talk about Dr. Kunjufu. But there's been an explosion of homosexuality and lesbianism over the last 20 years. What happened? Those are things that we need to address. Okay? Those are things that we need to address. So I just wanted to let you all know what was going on and how you need to stop chastising people who are making a point. Maybe you're upset because he stepped up and said, hey, he broadcasted it on social media. But what we've got to do as black people is that we've got to do something to remedy this problem. It is up to us, nobody else. They don't want you to remedy the problem because if they keep you dumb and stupid, then guess what? The prison industrial complex is going to eat our children alive. They're already doing that. We'll take a break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joinetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. We're talking a little bit about how we're raising our children today and how it's going to end up hurting them in the future. One other note about how that's occurring. I saw another video over this past week, where a mother was talking to her son. There were two mothers. Both had sons. One son was a bully. The other son was not. The bully was laughing at the boy and making fun of the clothes that he was wearing and the shoes that he was wearing. The young man was disheveled, no doubt. The mother was there, and the mother of the disheveled young man was talking about how they were in some tough times and it was hard to keep up, and children this and children that. The mother of the bully was chastising her son for bullying this young man and making fun of him. She went as far as to tell this young man that, and really, I'm surprised that you would even be buying a kid $300 sneakers, but this is part of the problem that we have with our parents these days. She had bought her son some Nikes that were $300. And she demanded that young man take those shoes off, and they were outside, and give it to the young man that he was bullying. And of course, the young man objected, and he was upset, and she was in his face demanding that he follow her directions. He ultimately took the shoes off and gave it to the young boy. The other guy, the young boy that was being bullied, took his shoes off, and she made the bullying child put his shoes on. She then went as far as to say, look, I'm also going to go home and look in his closet and get some of his clothes and give them to you. And I applauded that mother. Now, of course, nowadays, when you see stuff like this, first thing people think is that it's a skit. It's a skit. I didn't detect that this was a skit. But even if it was, it's certainly a great example of how you should parent. Number one, no child should bully another child. And especially when it comes to what that child wears. Now, I was fortunate. My mother worked her tail off. She was a single parent, but I was always able to look fairly decent when I went to school. When I was 13 years old, I lied to get a job, and a lot of the money that I made from 13 going forward, because I worked all through high school, I basically paid for my own school clothes. Okay? My mom didn't have to pay for any of that. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that we as parents, or I should say you as parents, should be making sure that your child is doing the right things. And bullying certainly isn't one of those things. Chastising a young man because he doesn't have shoes, chastising a young man because he doesn't look well is, and I know bullying is one of these things. Somebody that doesn't have their hair combed what I learned early on, there were a lot of kids that I went to school with that were homeless. There were a lot of kids that I went to school with that were adopted, that were living in shelters, in children's shelters. I always used to see this bus, MCH, that would bring kids to school. And I did not know up until I became, a sophomore in high school, that this was actually a children's shelter. Well, these parents didn't, children's home. These kids didn't have parents. They lived in a home. And many of those kids didn't dress well. Fortunately for me, although I grew up in a home, I was taught, hey, respect everybody, don't bully them. So here we are again, having to decide what needs to be done as it relates to parents and how our children grow up. What type of people are they going to be? You see, at the end of the day, parents, if you have kids, you really don't have time to be kicking it, partying, hanging out. I can tell you numerous times where I didn't have anything, but I made sure that my kids had food. I can tell you a lot of times, there were a few times that we had the lights turned off. And I had to scrape up that money. I didn't want them to know that the lights were turned off. I would take them, we'd go to the mall. Okay? And sometimes we'd go to the mall and stay till 9 o'clock, till the stores closed. They'd be saying, Dad, when we going home? Well, we're just walking around, looking around. Then we get home, and sometimes, the utility company wouldn't get back to turn it on until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Well, I pretend like something's wrong with the power. Y'all need to go ahead and go to bed. You don't know what people go through these days, man. It's always been a struggle. The difference is that when I was growing up, a lot of times people would help out. Nowadays, people are embarrassed. They don't want to help out because if they help out, then they'll think that you're going to look down on them. We've got to do a better job of empowering our community. And really, this is what this show is really all about today, is empowering and helping one another. That's what it's about. We've got to do these things. And when we see a parent, a teacher doing the right thing, then we need to applaud them. We certainly don't need to be attacking these teachers, because I'm going to tell you, parents, if your child is flunking, it's not the teacher's problem. It's not the teacher's fault. I gave the analogy last week about the chalkboard. It's easier to write on a board that has been cleaned and ready to write on as opposed to a board that has scribbling all over it. Because first you got to clean off the board to even write the lesson. And if your child is coming to school and not even ready to learn, and if you're not empowering him or at least demanding that this child learns, if you're not demanding that this child is doing their homework and all the necessary things that need to be done in order for them to be successful, then how are you blaming the teacher? I know a lot of teachers. I know a lot of dedicated teachers. I knew some that taught me, and I know some that are my friends that have been in the education system, and the horror stories that you have that they've told me. I know teachers, look, y'all don't realize that teachers even spend their own money. If you've been following on social media, you see where these teachers are spending their own money just to get their classes set up and ready to go. Your government in your city and state is cutting funds to public schools because they don't want your child to be successful. They want your child to be part of the prison industrial complex. You see, you don't understand. Do yourself a favor. Go out and do some research on whether or not there are private prisons in your state. You all do know what a private prison is, right? A private prison is a prison that is not ran by the state, but is ran by a corporation. And if you don't understand this, corporations are in the business to make money. So in order to go into these states and run private prisons, your state legislators had to make assurances to the corporations that they would be successful, they being that prison corporation. And how were those assurances made? They made pacts that they would pass laws and legislation that would criminalize simple behavior, that would send people to jail. Okay? Send them to prison. Let me give you an example. Just this past week, the state of Texas has now decided that they were going to make THC and its products illegal. Now, in a world where, and by the way, if you don't know what that is, that's marijuana. In a world where all of that stuff all across the country is being legalized, the state of Texas has decided that they were going to make it illegal. Now, what does that do? That causes more people to get into the justice system. And potentially it causes more people to go to prison. And when they go to prison, they go into these, what? Corporate prisons. Where these corporate prisons now can make you do labor. And look, let me just take that back. They don't make you. They incentivize a prisoner to do labor. Because look, if you're sitting in a cell, an 8 foot by 8 foot cell every day, okay, you want to get out. So what do? You go out and they'll come in with these work orders from, by the way, other corporations like a farm, like a ranch, a store, and they'll take these prisoners and they'll go and you have to work, and that prisoner gets $1.25 an hour. The other incentive is that the food in those prisons are terrible. So what do? Those people, particularly those prisoners who don't have family, who are sending them money and putting money on their books, this money goes onto their books so they can get some decent commissary. That commissary might be a bag of potato chips. That might be it might be a candy bar. It might be something as simple as toothpaste, toothbrush, toilet paper. That's the commissary. So they are uneducating your children so you can go and they can become part of the prison industrial complex. And you all are allowing it to happen. You all don't care. You all want to sit back and blame your children or blame your teachers that your children are not being educated when you're not doing your part as a parent. You're just not. That's why that thing with Darius Cook just shocked me. That so many people would have attacked him because he was just making a point. And because I worked in the education field for about 3 years, I got to see it up close and personal, not with high school students, but with college students, that these kids can't read. How do you expect them to read a contract? Do they even know what a contract is? Maybe this is part of the reason so many of them go into the music business and end up broke, because they don't take time to read a contract. And maybe this is the reason so many of them, they applauded what the Celtics did to Jaylen Brown, because Jaylen Brown was smart. You notice there are two guys that I know of, and there are probably others in professional sports, that don't have agents. Jaylen Brown is one, and Lamar Jackson is the other. Lamar Jackson's agent is his mother. And every time he comes up for a contract extension, you hear the local white media and the national media trying to chastise him. Well, you know, this wouldn't be going on if he had an agent. Well, the majority of the agents out there are white. They are making mints off of these black athletes. Jaylen Brown and Lamar Jackson keeps that money in the family. That 3%, 3 to 5% of a contract that goes to an agent, that money stays with them because they understand how to read a contract. So maybe this is why a lot of these players who make all of this money end up broke, because they're too busy keeping it real as opposed to keeping it in their pants and in their pockets. This is something serious to think about. So the next time you all decide that you want to chastise someone who points out the fact that our children are not being educated, maybe you should decide, well, what can we do to solve the problem, as opposed to attacking the messenger. That's the problem, is that we're too quick to attack the messenger as opposed to listening to the facts. And the fact of the matter is that they don't want to educate your children. One other point before I go. How is it that all of these people, and if you've been paying attention, how is it that all of these people voted for Donald Trump, and you can tell just by listening to some of the interviews that they are dumb as boxes of rocks? How is it that they continue to vote against their own circumstances? Well, it's easy, because they're dumb as boxes of rocks. You see, Donald Trump, even before he ran for president, said that Republicans have dumb voters. If I'm going to run for president, I'm going to run as a Republican, and I'll win. And he was right, because they have dumb voters. They want you to be miseducated. They don't want you to understand about the Constitution. Okay? So on that note, we'll take our top of the hour break. We'll be back in a moment. You're listening to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus Radio, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices, emanating live from the DMV. Local, national, and international listeners, get ready. Black Focus Radio is on the air. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite social media app. Now, here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Welcome back to the second hour of Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. This hour, we're going to talk about gangsters, gays, studs, and thoughts. But before we do that, I want to just expound a little bit more on what we talked about last hour, because it's important for us to understand some of the things that are going on. You know, there are a lot of parents who are out there not doing the things that they need to do. And it's important that we do this and we talk about this. And I know we're going to try to talk about what happened in Memphis, but let me just tell you all something. I read a post the other day where a man and his woman were out having a good time, doing some type of anniversary or something. They had gotten something to drink. The man was a truck driver, and she was bragging about the fact that he makes good money and he pays all the bills and yada, yada, yada. And they were celebrating, and they were on the way home, and they got stopped by the police. Prior to being stopped, the man was telling her, hey, let's change seats, because I'm a truck driver. If I get a DUI, I'm potentially going to lose my job. So apparently the woman refused to change seats. They got pulled over. The police officer asked them where they were going and where they'd been. And the lady opened her mouth and said, we've been out celebrating da-da-da-da-da. We were at so-and-so restaurant. The officer said, have you had anything to drink? She said, yeah, da-da-da-da-da. And then ultimately the officer pulled both of them out of the car, gave both a breathalyzer test, and the guy blew a .1, which was over the legal limit. He ended up going to jail. He spent 3 days in jail. When she finally got home, when he got home, she wasn't there. She came home later on that evening. He had packed all of his stuff and moved out. Now, I'm not debating whether or not that should have happened one way or the other. Here's my point, is that when you encounter a police on a traffic stop, you have one obligation. And that is to provide, if it's a legal stop, you provide your driver's license, your insurance, and your registration. You are not obligated to answer any questions whatsoever. You should take the fifth. Or you say, and of course, they don't have the right. If they ask you that they want to search your car, you say, I don't consent to any searches and seizures. And they can't search your car. They can run the dog around it all they want, but they can't search your car. But the fact that you opened your mouth, young lady, and told him, you gave him probable cause when you told him that you all had been out celebrating and you had a couple of drinks. You then gave him probable cause. I hope you all understand that. I'm not an attorney, but that's basic rights that we as the American citizens need to understand, because now we're seeing that this government is beginning to abridge our rights, which includes flock cameras. And if you didn't hear the story about the police who locked 300 patrons in a club in Memphis last weekend illegally, that's an abridgment of your First Amendment and your Fourth Amendment rights. You need to be aware of that. Okay. So this segment I want to talk about gangsters, gays, studs and thoughts. Gangsters, gays, studs and thoughts. And the reason I'm talking about this is I actually got this phrase from a guy that was on social media. And he made a lot of sense. Now, let me be clear. The drug culture has always been in my life. I grew up around it. So there's always been these people who thought that they were gangsters. Okay? I will tell you that homosexuality has always been in my life. And I'll tell you why. My oldest brother was homosexual. Okay? I would say that although I didn't know any of them, but I'm sure there were women who were lesbian. And I'm sure there were women, what we called back then, hoes. But there seems to have been a proliferation of all four of those categories over the last 20 to 30 years. I don't know why, but I know it's peculiar, and I'm not buying the fact that people are born that way, because every person, and look, and I don't know every gay or lesbian person, I'm not saying that at all, but every gay or lesbian person that I know, and I've over the years become friends with quite a few. How did you become this way? And I would love for someone to do a study. It started with sexual abuse as a child. If you know someone who is gay or lesbian, ask them if they'll talk to you and see if it started with sexual abuse. You see, this has been going on for a long time. A long time. But this attitude now, where anything goes, is part of what is hurting our future and is hurting our children. There are standards. I talked about it last week, about the video or the meme that was out where the young 4-year-old kid was wearing a dress. And the statement was, well, if he feels that way, it's okay to let him do what he feels. And I made the statement, well, if he feels like he's a pilot, should he work for Delta? And then, of course, people started trying to qualify. Well, it's not. Those are two different things. No, feeling is a feeling. If I feel like I'm a turtle, should you treat me as such? The question that we need to ask, and I'm bringing this up because of this book, and this is specifically talking about men being homosexuals. And I wanted to read something to you because Dr. Kunjufu years ago in the Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys warned us about this. Now, unfortunately, Dr. Kunjufu is no longer with us. He's passed on about 2 years ago. I became friends with him over the last 8-9 years. In fact, it's weird. I still have his phone number in my phone on my phone. But I decided to go out and do something here because I remember him writing about this in his book. Let me just read this to you. Okay? In his seminal lectures and literature, most notably Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu uses the example of a mother making her son sit down to pee as a metaphor for the accidental feminization and overprotection of young boys. He argues that while well-intentioned, this parenting approach strips young boys of their masculinity and natural development early in life. Now, there was a saying that we used to deal with. We used to say that black women raise their daughters and love their sons. I'll expound on that here in just a moment. The core argument, accidental feminization. Kunjufu notes that single mothers or female caretakers often teach boys to sit down to pee purely for household convenience and cleanliness, stripping instincts. He highlights that this suppresses a boy's natural biological inclination to stand, micromanaging an essential male experience. The only man rule. A foundational element of Kunjufu's philosophy is that only a man can raise a boy to be a man. He argues that women cannot fully teach boys how to navigate male-specific developmental milestones, including basic physical functions. The broader metaphor, overprotection versus manhood. Kunjufu connects this bathroom example to a larger systemic issue within the home and the education system, the domestic comfort trap. Mothers often inadvertently keep their sons' babies too long, creating an environment of soft discipline that does not prepare them for the harsh realities of the world. Lack of male mentorship. Because over 80% of primary school teachers are female and many households are a single parent, boys are constantly surrounded by female rules and behavior. The fourth grade syndrome. Kunjufu links this overprotection to the fourth grade syndrome, where black boys begin to fail academically and socially because they lack a strong positive male figure, to guide their transition into manhood. Rather than changing the child's natural instinct to fit a female-led household's convenience, Kunjufu advises mothers to seek out positive black male role models, such as uncles, grandfathers, mentors, or church leaders, to step in and guide young boys through their physical, emotional, and social development. Now, remember I said black women raise their daughters and love their boys or their sons. That's what that's what Kunjufu is talking about. And prior to Dr. Kunjufu passing, I had him on this show, by the way, and asked him, what would we have done had they listened to him? Where would this world be, our world be, had black people listened to him? Because he was on point. At the time that we read this book, I was raising a stepson. He was going to the fourth grade. He was one of two black kids. He was the only black male in that class. And he was smart as a whip because I was tutoring him out of my then college books. His white teacher refused to let him answer questions because every time she asked a question, he knew the answer. She actually chastised him. She actually sent a letter home saying that he was out of order. Fortunately for me, my wife at the time had just read this book. And she took the books to school with her for the parent-teacher conference. Now, I didn't go to the parent-teacher conference because I wasn't going to be nice. But fortunately, he was able to pass that class with straight A's and move on. Unfortunately, this young man grew up once we got divorced and things changed in his life. Now, I won't tell you how personal it changed, but it changed. And we discovered something that happened. Mothers raise their daughters and love their sons. That's part of the reason you've got so many of these girls who are, guess what? Got college degrees. You don't need a man. Take care of yourself. You all understand this, right? This is a serious issue in our community. You got black women who are mad at black men. I even saw one the other day talking about black women are more compatible with white men. What? And was sitting there trying to give her soda pop philosophy, as I call it, on why that made sense. Brother asked us, so who are black men compatible with? She couldn't answer that. So if your argument is that black women are more compatible with white men, then the argument should be that black men are more compatible with white women, which is ridiculous on both accounts. Kunjufu in that book also talked about how one mother would sit and watch, let her son sit and watch her put on makeup, how he became pretty. I remember early on, my son was young and he wanted something, I don't forget what it was so long ago. He wanted something that was pink. He was young. I don't think he was even 4 or 5. I think he was about 3. And I told him up front, I said, that's not a boy's color. Boys' colors are blue. Pink is a girl's color. We didn't have to have that conversation anymore. Because it was my job as a parent to guide him in the way that he needed to be reared. He was a young black male. I'm saying all of this is the reason why we have all these gangsters, these gay people, these lesbians and thoughts. It's because many of them are not being guided in the right direction. Because see, here's what I've also learned, and you can agree or disagree. Typically, and you don't have to agree or disagree, as a matter of fact, just go do your research. Typically, someone who has been sexually assaulted at a young age, they grow up to become what? Sexual assaulters. Go do your research. So if a young girl or a young boy is sexually assaulted growing up, they in their minds, their developmental minds, figure out that, hey, if it happened to me, it's okay that it happens to you. So it becomes a dangerous circle. And I believe over the years, this is in part why we begin to see so much sexual abuse. A lot of times those people will go up, particularly women, they'll grow up and be very promiscuous. They won't necessarily be lesbian. They'll grow up and be very promiscuous because they've at an early age been instructed by someone who assaulted them that this is okay. Y'all understand this, right? Now, look, you can get mad at me. Look, I'm open for dialogue here. Now, before some of you all try to say, oh, well, you're being anti-gay, whatever. I'm not. But I try to look for root causes. And I know when I was growing up, there were 1 or 2 homosexual lesbian women. And that number is not exact. And you might be saying, well, they just didn't tell you, you just didn't know. No, you knew. Okay? You knew. But there has been an explosion in that community over the last years, over the last decades. And I look for causation. Is it just people are, someone argue, well, it's always been around, they were just born that way. That could be true. But on the other hand, I'm seeing people who were never gay, and all of a sudden I see, especially women, that they're upset with men, so they're just going to go be gay. They're going to be a lesbian. I see this. You've seen it. The question is, can we fix it? I don't know that we can. I think I think it's out of the bottle now. The toothpaste, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Excuse me. I think what we can do is at least try and mitigate it, especially in our community. And I'm sorry, we just can't continue to allow this because part of it is going to hurt our race as a whole. I tell a lot of my gay friends, you were black before you were gay. Being black and gay are two different things. I don't care. Even if you claim that you were gay in the womb, guess what? You were still black before you were gay. Because understanding that you were gay has to be a conscious understanding. Being black, that's physiological. That's DNA. If you tell me that you were gay, then where's the DNA trace back in your lineage? Now, don't point to one uncle that may have been gay decades ago. Well, my uncle, no. So being black and gay are two different things, and I get offended when I hear people try to equate the two. Now, do you have the right to be who you are? Of course you do. Do you have the right to love who you want? Of course you do. But I'm not going to stand by and allow you to equate blackness, because let me ask you something, and I'm going to end on this. If you never tell me you're gay, and all I see is your outward appearance, your skin color, would I know you were gay? Same with you being a lesbian. If you never told me you were a lesbian, and all I saw was your skin color, would I know you were a lesbian? We'll take a break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. On UneducatedRadio.com.
When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world. Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics, and who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. If you'd like to join the show, a lot of stuff to talk about today. We've been talking about just raising our children, the educational system, and being responsible adults, and all of those things that come along with it. And this is not just a black problem. It's a white problem too. We have to understand that if we fix our problem, then we can be much more successful and save our children. Let me read something to you. Okay. J. Edgar Hoover was asked what his opinion was the single greatest threat to the United States. Here's what his response was. Negro unity. You all know who J. Edgar Hoover was. J. Edgar Hoover was over the FBI. He was responsible for COINTELPRO. He spied on numerous black entertainers and activists. In fact, many people believe the FBI was in part reasonings behind the death of a lot of black social activists early on. Billie Holiday was harassed by the FBI when she wrote the song Strange Fruit. In fact, she was attacked, she was jailed, but she wasn't the only one. J. Edgar Hoover said, the greatest threat to America was Negro unity. So now you have black people right now, like Candace Owens, like Coon Tatum, I should call Coon Owens, Coon Tatum, Coon A. Smith, the list goes on and on, Chef Coon Creole, the list goes on and on, who don't understand this. And they are being used, and let's not forget the coon rappers that are out there, the coon movie stars that are out there. Remember what Dr. Anderson talked about. Remember what he said about him. And let me go back in case you all missed the first part of the show. And I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but it's so profound, it's simple. Okay? He says, yet when black civil rights movement, the black civil began in the 1960s, blacks with a college education did not earn as much as whites. No, that's not the right one. Let me go back. Okay. Meritorious manumission. Okay? Meritorious manumission basically was, if you did something for white folks, you would be free. You would be free. He talks about how John Brown and Harper's Ferry was betrayed by a black man. He talks about all of those things. And by the way, if you've watched the story of Nat Turner, he was betrayed by a slave. If you understand what Harriet Tubman did, is that before she would let a slave run off while she was trying to get them to freedom, she would kill him. She would kill him. Okay? Meritorious manumission recognized and rewarded blacks who accepted their assigned position, but for personal gain would thwart openly and nefariously the efforts by other blacks to alter the racial status quo. Wow. The racial status quo. All right? Blacks seeking meritorious manumission, for instance, would endorse political candidates, knowing they will deliver nothing to black people. They will support integration with any group before seeking to strengthen their own people. Worst of all, those seeking modern-day meritorious manumission believes that the advancement of their own race is wholly dependent on the advancement of the white race and all other people of the world. Hello? That's rappers. He talks about in his book how entertainers, Malcolm said, we're the only people who allow entertainers to lead us. We're the only people who allow entertainers and athletes to lead us. Other organizations have doctors, lawyers, politicians. We have entertainers. Meritorious manumission. So we as a black community has got to wake up and start saying, hey, this is not working. We got to start asking some serious questions. Now, as I've said over and over again, that I refuse to listen to gangster rap. I do not watch any movies now that has any suggestion that black people are gang dealers. gangbangers and drug dealers. I watched, I believe that movie Nemesis, or it was a series called Nemesis. The only one that I had watched similar to that was, what was the one by 50 Cent? Show you, and Ghost. Was it called Ghost? I don't remember. And I talked about the fact that how this man became one of the biggest drug dealers in New York City, although he was masquerading as this great person. He ended up destroying his entire family. He ended up getting his daughter killed. He ended up leading his son, into that same profession. In Nemesis, it was about two black men. One was a police officer. The other one was a drug dealer. But you say, well, the police officer was a positive role model. No, he wasn't. He was rude. He was emotional. He fit all the stereotypes that they put out against black people. I watched it to the end, and a lot of people were posting online saying, oh, how great this is. Look, I'm telling you, folks, I'm not perfect. But here's what I know, is that if we are going to save our community, then we've got to start demanding better quality on radio and television. But see, the problem is you all hear this stuff, and because they beat you over the head with it, it's kind of like what they did with some of the slaves, is that they kept abusing you. There were people who Harriet Tubman wanted to help escape, and they refused to go. It's kind of like Maya Angelou's book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. You know, they tell you that you can have a bird in a cage, and you keep that bird in a cage for a certain period of time. You would think that if you ever opened the cage, that bird would fly away. In fact, you can open up a window and that bird would never fly out of that window, because in his little mind, he has been conditioned to understand that I get food here, I get shelter here. I don't have to do anything but sit. That's what they did to slaves. So when Harriet Tubman was gathering people to escape, there were some slaves who didn't want to go. In fact, she had to be careful of letting people know, certain slaves, that she was going to go, because they would go and tell massa, trying to get their meritorious manumission. That's what a lot of these athletes are doing today. You know, I wrote the book, Blue Chip Down. It's my latest novel. It'll be out September 1st. And that book is all about a man, a young black man who is a #1 athlete in the country, who decides to not take his scholarship. He's boycotting. He's leading a boycott of athletes around the country. And one of the characters in that book is another young man who, although he has a brief stint, he's proud of the fact that he's taking his scholarship to the university in Florida. And so is his mama. Ain't nobody gonna tell her how to raise her son. And he decided to go to Florida, even though Florida doesn't want him to vote. If his mother lived there, she couldn't vote. Well, she could vote, but her vote would have no power. He's going to Florida because he thinks he's smart, because Florida doesn't have an income tax. Oh, wow. But the grand picture of things is that Florida doesn't give a damn about him as a black person. It cares about his black athleticism. And in return, the money that they're paying you with NIL, they're going to make that back tenfold. You understand that the college football industry is a $1.4 billion industry per year. So it's college basketball. So I wrote this book because I wanted to make a point, is that we are lost and our athletes don't care. Let me give you another example. All of this money that these athletes make, why don't they have their own sports network? Why don't they have their own news channel? It's a good question, isn't it? I saw some posts this weekend about a radio station in Nashville that people are upset because some of their beloved hosts have been fired. 2 black women. Now, I know the radio business, and I know the radio business is based on ratings. But when they begin to realize that you are creating too much unity in the community, they find ways to get rid of you. And from what I understand, and I didn't know these women when I was doing radio in Nashville, this show didn't exist. But what I do know is that the person that would invite me over to that particular radio station to talk about fathers' rights and overall black issues, he got fired, who had been at that station for 44 years. That station was bought by white people. Most of the black radio stations in this country are owned by white people. Do you really think that they want you to be unified? Remember, J. Edgar Hoover said their biggest fear is being a unified Negro community. That attitude didn't stop when J. Edgar Hoover died. Remember, Martin Luther King was killed in 1968. And when he was killed, guess what? What was he talking about? He was not only trying to unify the black poor, he was trying to unify the white poor, and we would all join forces. You don't understand this, right? So they use our people, and we got a bad attitude about. Let me give you another example that just came out. The investment conference that just happened last week in Atlanta. The organizer built that conference on black people coming and learning how to invest, getting booths, networking, doing all the things that we need to do as a community to come together. He got all kinds of black stars, black sports figures, black financiers to come and talk about investing in the black community. Just this past week, he was doing interviews saying that he's done with the black community. So you built your organization on the black community. In fact, he even got a chance to talk to Kamala Harris and ask her what she was planning to do about black investment. So he was walking around carrying this black umbrella, and now all of a sudden he's put the black umbrella down and put up a white one, saying that next year he's going to be inviting whites and Philippines and Hispanics and everybody. So it's no longer a black thing. That's what he said. This ain't a black thing anymore. And he even intimated that he was mad because black people were chastising him on social media. Meritorious manumission. You see, black people build off of black people, and then all of a sudden, they want to forget about black folks. We have a problem in our community. We have a serious problem from black people. Now they say it's $2.1 billion annually. Less than 10% of that money goes into our community. If we had half of that money, think where we would be as a community. Think where our children would be as a community. Think where our schools and businesses would be as a community. You think that would be gerrymandering our districts if we had that money in our community? Do you think that they would be arresting our sons and daughters at a much higher rate than white communities? You know, I talked about Texas and now outlawing THC earlier in the show, right? Well, guess what's you know who that's gonna affect more than anybody else in Texas? Did you know that black people in Texas was 3 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana use or marijuana paraphernalia than a white kid? Did y'all know that? But you have no economic power. Every time we try to do something that shows our economic power, people back off. People criticize. I'm going to get mine. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Therein lies the problem. Therein lies our problem. We have to wake up, folks. We have to make a decision that we're going to take care of our own. And that's everybody. It's going to be bumpy starting off. But once you start helping one another, it becomes addictive. You want to see people succeed. But instead of us making music so I can get mine, I can't think of that movie. But there was a movie about this guy. He was an Arab guy, and it was about disaster. And the government had put together this list of people who were going to be able to get on. There was a world flood, and the government had put together this list of people that were going to be able to get on these specialized boats so they could save a few people. And this one Arab guy had mistreated so many people. He had all this money. And when it came down to getting on the boat, they wouldn't allow him to get on the boat. That's what's going to happen to a lot of y'all. You think that because you're making your money now, it's like what Jaylen Brown said a couple of weeks ago, is that, you know, it's funny, these agents make all this money off of these players, and then when those players fall on hard times, those agents are nowhere to be found to make a loan, to give them money, to help them. And then what do? You have to run back to the black community in hopes of being saved, when it was the black community who built you up. We've got to do a better job. And it starts with history, and it starts with culture. We'll take our last break. When we come back, it's What We Must Do. You're listening to Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices, on joynetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast, or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. We're at the last segment of the show. It's called What We Must Do. We use this segment to talk about how we can use some of the things we discussed today in order to move forward. My message has always been economic power. My message has always been education. Education and economics. Those are the two things that we should be looking at in order to rise above this. And I'm not just talking about being able to go out and get a degree. Look, they tell us that black women are the most degreed people in this country, segment in this country. Black men, by the way, is not that far behind them, contrary to popular beliefs. Okay? So we're getting degrees, we're getting education, but something's missing. That something is we're not getting what? Economics. And by the way, a lot of those degrees that those people are getting, those black women are getting, are in degrees that are going to disappear in the very near future. They're going to be worthless. Everything is AI. I'm working with a company right now where they are setting up a nonprofit where they are going to use STEM as the basis of their company, of their nonprofit. So they can teach young inner city youth about STEM and the power of STEM and why it's important that you choose the right degree if you want to be successful in the future. That's what they're talking about. Because that's where all of the jobs are going. If you're paying attention to the news, and unfortunately a lot of our kids are not even paying attention, parents not paying attention, you all are busy watching stuff like Ghost and Nemesis, and listening to drug music and gangster rap. You're not even paying attention to what's going on around you that could help your child, that could help your future, that could help you. You're just going to get a degree just to say, I got a degree. How many people do you know who have degrees who are not even working in their fields? I know people, I'm in the communications business. I've been in this business for 40 years. I don't have a degree in communications. By the way, I went to school for business administration. What is that? Good question. In fact, I use my business skills that I learned in business administration. And oh, by the way, a lot of those business skills that I learned are from other people who have businesses. What I use is my communications background to make money, just as I do today. But you got kids who have degrees that makes no sense whatsoever because they don't understand economics. STEM is the way to go. Science, technology, math, engineering. Or science, technology, engineering, math. That's how it goes. That's what STEM stands for. And in order to be able to be in those particular fields, then you've got to understand some basics. Number one, you've got to be able to read. That's why I spent that whole first hour of this show talking about these kids not being able to read. You've got to be able to comprehend. You've got to be able to be a problem solver. You know, it's funny, I'm still getting responses from the post I commented on over a month ago about the Chambers brothers. In fact, I got a response today where they gave me a thumbs up. And Briefly, New Jack City was based on the Chambers brothers, from what we've been told. And as I said in that post, that if those young men, those four brothers, were good enough and smart enough to raise a multi-million-dollar drug empire, they should have been smart enough to run a law firm. They should have been smart enough to run an engineering firm. You see, don't tell me black people are dumb. You don't continue to live how we live and are dumb. We just don't know how to apply that knowledge because we are not helping one another. You're getting yours and you don't care who else gets theirs. In fact, you grow up in the projects, move out of the projects, and then you turn around and turn your nose up at the people who live in the projects. You won't help them. I saw it up close and personal when I was doing my rites of passage camps. I would go to some of these successful people, black people, and say, hey, look, I'm charging $30. I need $30 to take this kid to a camp. That money wasn't even going into my pocket. There was no profit involved. It was just the cost of transportation and feeding them what? Friday night, Saturdays, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and Sunday, 4 meals. It was $30 at that time. Some of these people wouldn't even help me. I even had a couple of people who tell me I ain't gonna help those jigaboos. I grew up in the projects. I don't even want to deal with that anymore. I don't even think about that. Excuse me? We got a problem, folks. We have got to start understanding how each one of us teach one. We can't just make it a slogan because it sounds good. That old saying, faith without work is dead. Yeah. Slogans without work is dead. It takes a village. Well, what the village is doing? Well, I ain't in the village no more. And then your kid, because you now live in the suburbs, now your kid is being abused by other races. It's kind of like the lady I saw, I think was in South Carolina. She said she got 5 kids. She worked hard to buy a house in this suburb. And the HOH is trying to get her thrown out, calling her 5-year-old child a menace because the boy was standing in a park with his hand on a tree. This is a true story. But you worked so hard to be able to move into that white area because you didn't want to be around us. She's not the only one. We've heard that a lot from a lot of black people. In Little Rock right now, there are areas in Little Rock, it's called South Main, where I grew up in Little Rock. As far back as I can remember, it was always black. Now, guess what? White people have decided that they want to gentrify that area, and they're trying to run all the black folks out of there. There's a very prominent church that sits on the corner of Roosevelt and Main that has been there for over 136 years. People are coming down there trying to buy them out. And maybe you want to move to the suburb. Same thing happened in Nashville. Mount Zion was in the black community for decades, and then they decided that they were going to move out to Old Hickory, out of the black community. Meritorious manumission. Man, I can't help but to think that, boy, Dr. Claude Anderson was so profound on that book, in this book. No one can save us from us, for us, but us. But us. If white people wanted us saved, we would have been saved a long time ago. If white people wanted to get rid of racism, they would have gotten rid of racism a long time ago. You think they want to get rid of it? Do you? Show me proof. Because there is no proof. Black people did nothing to white people except want to be free. We haven't asked for anything extra. Now, we are demanding reparations, which we deserve. But when our ancestors were free, the only thing they wanted to move as far away from the South that they could. And still many of them weren't able to do that. They just wanted to make their own way. They made towns like Rosewood. All of these towns that were burned to the ground and people were murdered. These black people did nothing to these people. Elaine, Arkansas. They did nothing to these white people. They just wanted to be free. So if you're depending on white people to save you, another classic example right now that's going on in the political realm is that there are white Democrats we know the Republicans don't give a damn about black people. That's why they're trying to dismantle all the black history and these book bans and stop these black museums. We know that already. But now we've got Democrats. Everybody in this country ought to have universal health care. Everybody. We are the only industrialized nation that doesn't have universal health care. There are some smaller nations that have universal health care. What are they calling these people? Democratic socialists. When we live under socialism every day. When someone patches your road, that's socialism. Okay? When the police comes, that's socialism. When the fire department shows up to put out a fire, that's socialism. You understand this, right? But now you got people running saying these are things that we need to do for our community. All of a sudden they are being labeled communist. These people don't care about us. They're only concerned about the rich folks. Now, I can't speak to white folks. They're going to do what they want to. They want to be racist. They're going to be racist. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say to black people today is that if they truly wanted to get rid of bigotry and racism, it could have been done a long time ago. Let's look at this gerrymandering that has taken place this year. Why is it that it is mainly the southern states, the Confederate states, who have raced to gerrymander their district and basically destroy black voting power? Why is that? I asked the question months ago, and I continue to ask the question. What did black people do to white people to make them so angry at us? What do we do? Are you mad because we are the fathers of civilization? Are you mad because we were the first ones to chart the stars? We were the first ones to sail the ocean blue? Are you mad because we were the first people in America? Why are you mad? Are you mad because we were the first doctors, the first writers, the first? Are you mad because you can't build a pyramid? What did black people do to make white people so mad at us that you would rather continue your bigotry and racism? Dr. Frances Cress Welsing makes the point. It's fear. It's called white genetic annihilation. You're seeing it play out right before our eyes. 2042 to 2050, this country will be predominantly brown skinned. That's what this immigration thing is all about. If it wasn't, why aren't they deporting Italians? Why aren't they deporting illegal Norwegians? Illegal British? Why aren't they? They're only deporting brown skinned people because they understand the power of your DNA. Your melanin is dominant. Their skin color is recessive. And we've got to start teaching this, and we've got to make our people alert in what's going on. It's called education, not just in a book sense, but a historical sense. And that's what we must do. I hope you enjoyed the show, Black Focus Radio. We're on every day, Monday through Friday. You can always catch the show on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And by the way, I've even started posting back on Twitter. They've been asking me to what do they call it? Whatever they're doing to try to make you pay for Twitter. I'm not paying for Twitter. In fact, last post I made on Twitter was 2017. I just decided to post again because I'm posting my book, which reminds me, don't forget, Pain of Vengeance is out, and Blue Chip Down will be out on September 1st. Both books will be available on Amazon in paperback, hardback, ebook, and audiobook. But if you would like a paperback or a hardback autograph, if you purchase direct from me, I will autograph it and send it to you direct. All right? I appreciate all your support. I've got another book that I've started on. I'm on chapter 7 on that particular book. I'll keep you posted on that. I've already started doing some of the PR for that particular book as well. And I didn't realize that I started writing that book back in 2005. So I'll leave you with this. If you're not willing to fight for change, then don't expect a change to occur. It's never going to happen. Marching and singing never change a thing. It just show them you're miseducated, and sit back and say when they get tried, sit back and say when they get tried, they will go. When they get tired, they'll go home. Real change comes with a price, and you fight for it. Look at history. Okay? They march. Okay? That's Malcolm X. All right? Y'all have a great day. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on UneducatedRadio.com. Habari Gani.
You've been listening to Black Focus Radio, where we discuss our issues, develop our solutions while using our voices. Special thanks to JoinedRadio.com, where they keep you inspired and informed. Want to advertise, have comments, or guest ideas? Send your requests to blackfocusradio@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on Black Focus Radio.